September informational webinar, Developing a Florida Post-Secondary Comprehensive Transition Program. My name is Drew Andrews. I'm the Assistant Director and Technical Assistance Coordinator at the Florida Center for Students with Unique Abilities at the University of Central Florida. Today's webinar is being recorded. Our presenters today are Dr. Janice C. Brooks Blackmore, our Executive Director, and myself. Handouts can be downloaded from the chat section, which can be accessed by clicking on the little chat icon or the speech bubble down at the bottom of your Zoom window. If you have any difficulty hearing the presentation, phone numbers that you can call and join the audio via phone while following the slides online will also be posted in the chat window. And at this time, we'll go ahead and begin our webinar. And it's great to have everyone with us here today. And we're going to start with developing a Florida Post-Secondary Comprehensive Transition Program. Janice, do you have anything you'd like to say as we begin?
Welcome, everybody. Happy fall. Hopefully everyone has gotten off to a great start. We're excited for those of you who are here and hope that we can provide a lot of good information about starting conversations or continuing conversations for developing a program if you're not already one. Thank you.
Very quickly, I'm just going to tell you about the Florida Post-Secondary Comprehensive Transition Program Act and about our current programs. So the Act was signed into law January 21st, 2016. And it has four major components. It established the Florida Center for Students with Unique Abilities. It established Florida Post-Secondary Comprehensive Transition Programs. Sorry about that. I was trying to let someone into the meeting. If someone else could let attendees in, because when I click, it wants to go to the next slide. And then there are two areas where it provided funding. And so it funds initial and continuing grants to institutions of higher education who have an approved program. And it also funds scholarships for students to attend approved programs. So what is the purpose of a Florida Post-Secondary Comprehensive Transition Program? And this is directly from the legislation. It is to increase independent living, inclusive and experiential post-secondary education, and employment opportunities for students with intellectual disabilities through post-secondary education programs. So eligible students, very quickly, must be a student with an intellectual disability using the federal definition, and there's the code for that, of an intellectual disability. The student must physically attend the eligible institution and submit documentation regarding their intellectual disability. Who are the eligible post-secondary institutions? Those would be either a state university, a Florida college system institution, one of our state colleges, a career center in Florida known as our technical colleges, or a charter technical career center. Also, an independent college or university that's located and chartered in this state and is not for profit and is accredited. And so all total, there are a little over 120 eligible institutions that can establish a Florida Post-Secondary Comprehensive Transition Program. Again, all of these programs are post-secondary, and all students must have exited the K-12 system and no longer be receiving services funded through the Florida Education Funding Program. So here are the FPCTP programs currently in the state. And you see we have them all the way from out in the Panhandle with Okaloosa Technical College, all the way to the College of the Florida Keys, and many, many in between. There are currently 19 programs on 24 campuses. because if a college has more than one campus, that program can be located on more than one campus. So our universities include FAU, Florida Gulf Coast University, Florida International University, UCF, USF, St. Petersburg, and Southeastern University, Lakeland. Our state colleges, Broward College, the College of the Florida Keys, and Indian River State College, and all three of those state colleges have programs on 2 of their campuses. Also, St. Petersburg College, Santa Fe College, and Tallahassee Community College. Our technical colleges include both of the technical colleges in Lee County, Cape Coral and Fort Myers Technical College, Lively Technical College, McFadder, Okaloosa Tech in Fort Walton, Orange Technical College on the west side, Robert Morgan Technical College in Miami, and Sheridan Technical College in Hollywood.
So we have 19, and like Drew said, we have over 120 eligible institutions across the state. And the reason why we're doing the webinar today is to give information about how others can join. And we have several steps in which we would like to walk through. And I can tell you, there are a lot of steps to keep in mind, and we tried to break it down. And there'll be sub steps within those, but we'll stay at the top of the steps. And one thing we do want to assure you that we are available to answer any other questions related to any of the steps if we don't fully cover it during the time frame that we have for the webinar today. So as you see on the screen, we do have 6 steps right now. It's important when you start thinking about becoming an FPCTP, how you start your conversation. So we'll walk through each one of those. We actually have 12 steps that we'd like to just highlight for you, from establishing the need to looking at the resources that are available to FCSUA and celebrating the opportunities to actually become an approved program. So we'll move through just talking about step 1. Let's look at step 1. As you begin your conversations, you want to talk about how will you establish the need for an inclusive post-secondary education program for students with intellectual disabilities. And you know, as we talk to institutions, one thing that we like to really emphasize, you will begin conversations in the same way that you begin conversations for any new program on your campus. And so for any new programs, you think about the needs of that program and information you need to gather to justify it as you move it through your curriculum approval process at your institution or school district. And so when you're thinking about it, one of the things that's critically important to becoming an FPCTP is your employment needs in the region. You want to look at data on DOE website, look at your catchment area, connect with your school districts, connect with your employers, think about what are our needs in this area, because that's how our programs really start thinking about what they will offer. You also want to think about who will participate in those programs. Who are the individuals that are actually exiting the K-12 system that will be available in the next 3 to 5 years to participate in your program so you can recruit them? And as you think about it, as you're learning about our FPCTPs, they have different targeted groups. Of course, you'll learn as we move through that our targeted group are individuals with intellectual disabilities. However, as you mentioned about our state legislation, in that legislation, it talks about transitional age, 18 to 26, but that's not limited to that age. And with that in mind, you may increase your targeted age group to anyone, depending on your area and what is the capacity of your institution. And think about, why would you want to, and how would you share the benefits of employing individuals with intellectual disabilities. So you have some homework as you're thinking about developing a program, because this is going to have to move up to higher administration through the DOE, where you need to think about what are the benefits as you talk with employers, as you talk with your colleagues at your institution. And again, some justification, looking at the rationale and need for your program is, what does the data say? What are the data points in Florida in particular? But you also have the national data points. They kind of let you know how things are going. And what is your institution's relationship with employers? Because a goal of ours is for students to be out in the legislation, is for once students complete programs, is that they become employed. And so you want to look around to your employers to see what kind of relationship do we have. And I'm sure every institution has a great one, because you have students at your institution enrolled already. Okay. And when you're thinking about that, it's not only the employers, but you have local agencies. Again, your institution probably already have them, but what are those local agencies that can help you, particularly with this population? And what are some of the services that are already out there being provided for students and adults without disabilities that relate to employment, independent living, relationships, a number of things? What is your institution's relationships with those, and how to incorporate individuals from that in your surrounding area to support this program? There is legislation that says these programs can be established. You just went over that. And so that's really important. It actually starts with the Higher Education Opportunity Act. And so Florida is parallel to that in looking at this federal legislation, and Florida has its own legislation, which is uniquely focused on building those comprehensive transition programs in Florida. And in your school district areas, and when you think about the technical colleges, you're required to really do a needs assessment related to Perkins 5. So take a look of what is the comprehensive local needs assessment information that can help you determine how and why would you offer a program for students with intellectual disabilities at your institution. So you're getting your arguing points together, and those will also be helpful in the application process, actually. So as you think about that, now you're thinking about why you want to establish the program. Now you're thinking about, who do I need on my team? Again, just like you would any other program in your institution, who are the people who I need to inform, and so that they can also carry the accurate information, provide you the information and resources that you don't know in order to build this program. And so we have some suggestions of who might be part of your team. It's an interdisciplinary team. It's a multidisciplinary team. It's a team that includes individuals outside of your institution. Who do you want to bring on board to kind of help you establish and provide a high quality program? You can go ahead. It won't let you move forward, huh?
Here it goes, finally.
So some examples, and I know you probably would think of even more, but we try to think of, because we are, as you mentioned, we're looking at universities, we're looking at state colleges, and we're looking at technical colleges. So we want to include administrators from college level, higher level administrators who would have input and who can carry the message effectively, as well as in your school district with your relationship with the technical colleges, who within that school district can carry that message. It's important. We've seen with all of our programs that if administrators are involved, the likability of the program becoming an approved program in a shorter period of time is there. If you have, if you're at a university or state college and you have a department chair or college dean, someone in the vice president role who is one who has a bigger picture other than what's in your department or with your faculty. Same for in your school system. Maybe one of the area superintendents can be part of your team. They're the ones who's going to carry that message to the superintendent, who plays a key role in making sure that the programs will become an approved program. We didn't include the president. They're definitely going to have to be one. We didn't include the superintendent, but they can certainly be members of that team as you start thinking about it. And we know how busy they are. And we're thinking about high-level administrators that's really going to help you move it. Your CTE directors, ESE directors, those who have a broader picture of what's going on around the district and or the school. A grant administrator is critically important because there are funds, as Drew mentioned earlier, that we want to make sure a high-level grant administrator understands how these particular supports will exist at your institution. Now, other people to think about, instructors, other support personnel at your institution. That might be faculty and instructors of both kind, and faculty and staff actually at your institution who provide instruction, who knows the curriculum, who would be willing and really open, engaging to invite students with intellectual disabilities in their classes. Student services, that's a broad range. That's from counseling, enrollment services, registration, financial aid, accessibility services, whatever students are engaged in and how their needs are taken care of at your institution. You want to think of somebody who can give you some oversight or some help about that entity so that the entire institution is aware of this program. What instructional support, if you have any within your, that you provide to faculty, whether they may be faculty development personnel, that might be additional instructional support like job coaches, if you have that within your institution or district. Those in our school districts who are specialists in the area of intellectual disabilities are critical. And another critical support, as I mentioned earlier, financial aid. A component of our support has to do with scholarships. So you want people who are overseeing scholarships or aid to students are aware of how this program could work. Now, we mentioned agencies, families, like I said, it'll go beyond just what's at your institution, and even students. And so we have a strong relationship with vocational rehabilitation. All of our programs do. Career Source is sitting there. There should be not one student with an intellectual disability exiting any of our schools who does not have or know and made a decision whether to take advantage of vocational rehab or not. But Career Source is right there helping everybody in the community related to employment. If we're talking about connecting with employers, why not connect with someone in the Chamber of Commerce? One of our particular programs, that's how they got booming with recruitment and support, by being engaged with the Chamber of Commerce. And some of our disability groups, like the Agency for Persons with Disability is important, the Center of Independent Living, they all have the same things in mind: employment, independent living, and people being able to live a high quality life. Family members, you know, start everything. They make a difference in spreading the word and helping others, as well as students who may have taken advantage of a program or who are interested, as other people that might be on your team. Local parent advocacy groups are always there, Down Syndrome Association. So you can look around and broaden your perspective about who should come to the table and have a discussion about this program, and then how this program could be implemented. Okay.
In step 3, we're going to talk about Florida Postsecondary Comprehensive Transition Program development, and we're going to talk about capacity building and program improvement that will be involved in your initiation and ongoing as your program is established. And we're going to use the taxonomy for post-secondary comprehensive transition programs to really look at this. We apply a capacity building program improvement model that extends research to practice. And so the information that we're sharing is research-based. Strategic planning informs development, implementation, and evaluation. And we support you as a team through strategic planning, and we have an online strategic planning tool system that informs us on technical assistance needs and professional development needs that programs have. So the taxonomy for comprehensive transition programs is a guiding framework used to assist institutions of higher education in Florida to develop inclusive post-secondary programs for students with intellectual disabilities. It's a great framework to be able to become more familiar with inclusive post-secondary education programs and to really not forget any component that needs to be included in development. It serves as part of our capacity building model that helps expand inclusive post-secondary education across the state. And there's content and domains were established using 3 research-based frameworks. And those, the citations are there from Lyman Dukes at the University of South Florida, Dr. Paula Kohler, who was our original executive director here at the University of Central Florida, and Meg Griegel, who is one of the co-directors at Think College. So we just want to take a quick minute just to show you some visuals of the taxonomy for post-secondary comprehensive transition programs. And you see right here, it's starting with students in the center, student focused. And over here, you see, we're looking at person-centered planning, self-determination skills, paid work experiences, financial aid. And we move on then to faculty and staff focused. And what are the needs of your faculty and staff? Next, you look at the program and institution, because we want all of our programs, and the legislation guides us to be inclusive and to be integrated in the campus, not just this. These programs should not be looked at as a special education program on a campus, but a part of your campus. And then the 4th area is concept and system development, which really looks at your mission, aligning your FPCTP mission, aligning with your institution's mission, looking at accommodations, modifications, and support, standards of practice, and engagement in the community. So each one of these areas is broken down into a domain with benchmarks. And these are the different benchmarks. And I'm not going to go through reading each of these, but you see, all of these are things that you really need to look at. Financial support, as Janice mentioned earlier, having financial aid involved, because we know that post-secondary education, it takes funding to be able to participate in post-secondary education. Under faculty and staff, professional development, which we know is a large part of what takes place, but supporting instructors so that they know how to better instruct students with intellectual disabilities. All learners have access and supports, and the institution of higher education faculty and staff engage and support programs so that programs can grow and expand. Although many programs may start with a very narrow focus, a smaller program, our programs expand over time as it becomes more a part of the institution, and there's a better understanding of how inclusive post-secondary education can offer more options to students with intellectual disabilities. Program and institution focus domain and benchmarks, we're looking at student recruitment and enrollment, credentials and competitive employment, materials and resources, and of course, program evaluation, very important. And finally, our concept and systems development domain. So those are our domains and benchmarks in the taxonomy for comprehensive transition programs.
And Drew has just shared with you our framework, which it's taken a lot of time to get into a tool that we use. So it is, all of those are revisited into a tool that we use, as was mentioned, to help with capacity building and program development. And so we have an online strategic platform, strategic tool that's in a platform for actually two different groups of individuals. This one in particular is post-secondary ed. And so with that, as we build capacity and as we help with established programs with program development or programs that are trying to get there, we use an online strategic planning tool. And you'll see the link here on the very first bullet. No one can access that without getting a license or access from us, but it is a tool that we use with a team. And our focus really is a team. I mean, we are sticklers about that. So individuals are not able to just enter unless you're a team leader, but you have a team in which you are establishing. And so if you're interested, once you have maybe had a conversation with Drew and me or either one of us, and we talk through, we're going to take you through this step of looking at how to actually plan with your team, maybe at the same time that you're looking at applying for an application to become an approved program. But you do have to request access. And the very first time that you're in that tool, it will be a facilitated process. So your initial planning process in the tool will be by one of our experts, if it's not Drew or me, who will work with you to actually go through and understand how our taxonomy is incorporated within the tool and areas for you to consider as you think about how will we develop our program. So it can happen right along with when you're developing your application. The nice thing that we like about this is that whatever plans, you can create many plans, excuse me, they stay within this system. So you have plans that you can share with your teams, that you can go back to, that you can refer to. This is what the platform looks like. And we are, we keep the data for a very long time. We've been using this platform, particularly on the transition one that you see, since the early 2000s. And so we've gathered a lot of data to help us move through it and it really support our teams as they look at accountability for where they are in their program application and development. So when we start thinking about your application and development, on our website at fcsua.org, under programs and institutions, is a tab up that you will find a sample template of the information that we ask you for the application. And it kind of aligns with what's in our strategic plan. But we want to talk with step 5 about how you do that application. We do warn you because a lot of programs or institutions jump right to the application without looking at the strategic plan. And then questions that we ask in supporting them to develop a wholesome program really comes from the tool. But we look at your application and we're going to talk through how all the players are involved in actually approving who you are as an approved program. You can go ahead, Drew. So it really starts with us always. And as you work with your institutions, you can go back. I know it's tricky. So it starts with us working with you in working on that application that I mentioned that is up on our website as an example, because in our platform, virtual platform, there's 2 platforms you'll use that will allow you to look at where your programs are and then continue to apply for program approval as well as for grant awarding. So in this case, if you are a university, you're going to work with us, Florida Center for Students with Unique Abilities, work with you until your application is in pretty good shape to submit to DOE. We approve your application first. And once we approve your application, and this is an agreement that has been aligned with DOE in the legislation, we move it forward to the Board of Governors in order for the Chancellor's office to approve it, because it goes right up to the commissioner and the governor in the state. If you are a state college, if you're a state college, then it's going to go to the Chancellor of Florida Colleges. Same as it would if you had any other program, it's going to follow that pathway. Once it gets approved at your institution, we are the intermediary person, I should say, or a group that after it leaves your institution, instead of going directly to DOE, it's going to go through us for approval first and then to DOE. If you are a technical college, you're going to go through the technical college, the chancellor for a career technical education and the technical and adult education. That will be that chancellor who takes a look at it and approve it. They're very much aware of our programs. And then actually that chancellor has a role with our independent colleges as well, because that goes through the executive director. If you're an independent or private college, it's going to go through the executive director or the commissioner for independent schools. So we have we play with everybody in DOE to actually get your programs approved. And then there's an even further step. As you see here, I'll go straight to the bottom of this slide where it talks about requires federal comprehensive transition, post-secondary, transition and post-secondary program application. Once you become approved through FCSUA, then the Department of Education, after 1 year of approval and implementation, then you have to apply to be a federally approved comprehensive transition and post-secondary program. But to back up to the other bullets so that you can understand that, we work with you on your application. We work with you every step of the way literally, that's our charge. We want more programs in the state of Florida, and we do everything to make sure they're high quality. So we work with you on that. So there are no crazy questions that you may ask, and there's not too much time you may take. A focus that we will have, other than what Drew emphasized, as you see bolded here, that we've emphasized you having a meaningful credential, preferably that has industry certification. So what does that mean, meaningful credential? Well, you can think about all of your programs that you have at your institution. What does it say? In our case, what does it say to an employer? Does it ring to an employer like, yes, I can use that individual. I want to employ that individual. Now, one of the things that we always say, if the students were able to complete a comprehensive transition program without this level of support, they would be doing it without this level of support. We want to be real clear that these programs are non-degree seeking programs. However, it's a little different when we start looking at our career technical education, because our students are going through those programs, whether they have been carved out uniquely to meet the needs in your industry and to allow them to complete at different levels of occupational completion points, or they're at a college or a university where there's a component within your institution after you identify what would be the niche that you want to focus on, where those individuals will have a credential that tells employers they are hireable. And so we really get with you on that, because employment is really important. The students may attend your programs full-time, but they definitely have to attend your programs half-time. So they cannot go less than half-time. And it's according to what your institution calls full-time and what they call half-time. Just like everybody else, students must meet satisfactory academic progress. Therefore, your program must have a definition for what is that. Most of our programs align with their institution. However, they have additional supports in the event our students struggle. What kind of supports are in place to ensure that they may move along through the program? Okay, Drew? And with our programs, we start thinking about these programs that they range, as I mentioned, from every institution we have some unique programs. There may be specialized programs. As you look at Like at Florida Atlantic University, they use really a specialized path where students with intellectual disabilities are carved out 3 pathways in which they can actually pursue a credential at their institution, uniquely for them, but the program is definitely inclusive. Also, others provide a pathway, which means the students may come into their program and it may have a specific holding time to ensure that the students are doing really well before they move on to one of the other programs, like at Santa Fe College. Santa Fe has a pathway where they get the students even more prepared to participate in a college setting so that as they identify the options that Santa Fe has offered, that they may go that particular pathway. And Santa Fe makes sure that those students are ready. So they may be with the staff for a semester or two and getting them ready to go. Some of you are familiar with the SLS programs or courses that also helps kind of bridge that gap for students who may not be quite ready for college but need some additional help. Other programs identify specific kinds of programs. For example, Orange Technical College has weaved out in their welding and electrician program, they've weaved out a caveat, just a piece that would be for our students who are enrolled in their programs where they can become welder helpers or electrician helpers. And then we have others where whatever is available at their institution, like at the Lee County Technical Colleges, whatever students at Lee Technical Colleges want to enter the pathways, our students can enter those same pathways with additional support. So every institution looks at it in a different way. There's no cookie cutter. We have guidelines that you must follow, but there's no cookie cutter. This is the FPCTP other than the requirements that we've mentioned along the way. Okay. So I mentioned that there's a template up on the website that you can look at, and that gives you a head start in thinking about what we will put in the application. If you've worked with Drew and me or one of our expert facilitators from around the state and country, then you're familiar with what you have in the strategic plan and how you want to maneuver development and getting it up and running. So we have an FCSUA community, which is our other virtual platform, which is where you actually submit and work on your application. Here too, this is a place where you must request access. So depending on the size of your institution, each institution can have 2 or 3 licenses. And so these are people who will actually be in the community to work on your application and everything else related to your program. You see that we have several areas. We have applications that you may go in if you are applying for a new program or if you're renewing. And I do want to emphasize at this point that if you are a new program, you are approved for 3 years. And then after the end of the 3rd year, you may renew, and then you are approved for 5 years. And after that, it's 5 years. You renew every 5 years. So of those 19 programs, they're on a continuous renewal cycle because we can continue to support you. And our goal is for you to remain an approved program. And so we assist you in maintaining that status. In the community, one of the areas that we emphasize over and over again is that you keep your institutional information and contacts updated. And furthermore, it'll be very difficult to move through a lot of the other components within the community if this information isn't accurate. You're going to get a notice and a warning to do that. And so as we start looking at that and thinking about your application, you have to think about who in that application, the students who are eligible. Remember, I mentioned the targeted age group. You're going to have to talk about who that might be if we stay under the applications component. how will you admit them? We look at how will you recruit them? How will you admit them? Who are they? How will you get documentation? Drew shared that eligible students had to share documentation that they are indeed an individual with intellectual disabilities. They also can no longer be part of the K-12 system. So they have completed, exited, whatever, but they're no longer under IDEA because they're college students right now. You also have to talk about assessment and advising. How will you support them? How will you have used those evidence-based and promising practices you shared in the taxonomy to make it person-centered, to make it student choice, to emphasize self-determination and advise those students through completion, helping them choose the right area? You'll have to answer to that. And then the program description, thinking about your curriculum. How long will your program last? Just as we mentioned that all of the programs have different pathways to get a credential, they also last different lengths of time. Some programs have 1 to 4 years, some have 1 semester, and they continue to readmit students. It's different. As the technical colleges say, terms, they have different terms, whether they support them 1 term or 3 terms, they continue to admit and support students. Okay, go ahead to the next one. You also have to discuss employment opportunities. Again, thinking about your team, who's on your team, what do you know about your employers, what's in your catchment area, what do you know about the data? We don't want students coming into your program, have a great time, get very independent, build some great employment skills, and then they go back home. Our focus is that they get out and they go to work. And I know that's all of our institutions' focus. And so we have a heavy emphasis on figuring out how to best help you do that. Also, the performance indicators, other than the ones that the Florida Center has, that are indicators that come out of the legislation, what other performance indicators do you have as a program? What do you want to have as gauging points to let you know how well you're doing year by year? And it's with any program, we want to know whether or not it's sustainable. Yes, we have support. We have support in grants to help with implementation. We have support with scholarship to help students and families offset costs to participate in your program. What is your institution doing? That's why you need those higher level administrators. What will your institution do to also make sure, if for some reason these supports are no longer available, how will you do it? And by the way, our scholarships for some of our programs do not cover every single thing. So how else can you support and continue to bring in the students that you want and maintain the quality of your program? But almost every program asks you, if you have a new program, how are you gonna make sure you have the right faculty? How are you gonna make sure you have the right space to work in? How will you go to donors and pursue grants to make sure that you're there and you're stable? It doesn't come today and it's gone 5 years from now. Additionally, I mentioned before that once you become an approved program, then you have to become a federally approved program. And we ask for that documentation to be evident no longer than 1 year after you have become an approved program and began implementation with your students. Part of in the FCSUA community, part of the application, a lot of schools, excuse me, include additional information. They may have already worked on what their recruitment information might look like, what their program layout is. They may have an application already drawn up. You want to prove to the center and to DOE, we are ready. We have thought about all of these things, and we know it's preliminary because once implementation is underway, things change. But one thing we cannot emphasize enough is, and you may remember as I was talking back about the teams, every program, if it's a state college or university, must have the president's approval, as well as the board of trustees. every technical college must have the superintendent's approval as well as the school board. And so we work with you, excuse me, to talk about how you can show that evidence. And we have some very strict language because we wanted to be clear to DOE that your school district, that your institution is real clear that you're welcoming this program into the full community of your institution. And as Drew said, not as some special program over in the corner. This is a full part of your catalog. And so we work with you on how you get that documentation to show the support of the president or the superintendent, and to have the support of the board of trustees or the school board. And so section 9 and 10, you're uploading that evidence and you have the evidence as the institution's commitment. That's a pretty strong component that we like, and we remind people that, hey, this is part of the institution. These are tuition and fee paying students, and so they benefit just like all other students. In our FCSUA community, this is what the application looked like. That's why I mentioned on our website, you can see the template. A lot of people start with that, and then they come in here and they see, we'll walk you through it. They see how to accurately insert the information, and it makes it a whole lot more easier because they have an idea of what to look for other than our bullets about what we have. So that's the application, which we like to emphasize. You have an application to be approved that must be approved. That is the program. An approved program brings additional supports. One support is student scholarships. Students don't compete for these scholarships. That's on the approved program. Additionally, as an approved program, Drew is going to talk to you about the grant proposal. So you also are able to submit a grant proposal and be awarded for implementation. Drew?
We oftentimes tell folks that the grant is funding to implement the FPCTP, and it's only available to those who have an approved Florida Postsecondary Comprehensive Transition Program. And it also is in the FCSUA community, and you go through, it looks very similar to the application process where you go through and answer questions and upload some documents. There's a proposal narrative, a logic model, evaluation, budget justification, commitment form, additional documents. So we're talking about what money do you need and funds will it require for you to implement your Florida Post-Secondary Comprehensive Transition Program. So it's certainly something to be thinking about as you're putting together your program application, to also be thinking about your grant proposal at the same time. So Florida Post-Secondary Comprehensive Transition Program grants may be up to $500,000 annually if it is adequate and appropriate. Many programs just have a $300,000 a year budget, but some of the very large programs that also maybe have a residential component and lots of staff involved, it takes more money to run that. And so they have a $500,000 annual grant. Those grants are to start a new program or extend, expand, or improve an existing program. So once you have your first grant, which can be up to 3 years, you can have an additional grant that can be a sustainability grant to help you support your program, to help you expand your program, to help you improve your program. Now, technical colleges in the state of Florida are each considered an individual college. And so each technical college can request and apply to be a program and request for a grant. Technical colleges that are in the same district, if they would like to, could apply through the district, and the program could cover both of the technical colleges. State colleges are each considered, even if they have multiple campuses, they are considered one state college. So for instance, Broward College, which has multiple campuses, is one state college. And so they may have a program on multiple campuses, but it's all under the same program. So grants can cover, and most of our grants, the primary focus, personnel, a program coordinator, instructors. That might be a percent of their assignment or a supplement for overload. It might be support staff, mentors. It could be job coaches. It could also be curriculum material that's needed, maybe manuals, materials, or supplies. Grant dollars can also cover equipment. So maybe there's specific program equipment or equipment for staff that is needed. And so it can cover equipment. Travel, that would include offsite for program development, intern supervision, job placement. It can also cover professional development. And then we also require that teams attend our annual institute each year in July, and our mid-year progress update, which I'm going to talk about in just a few minutes. And so those dollars, so travel dollars must be set aside in the budget also. And then there's other, and that's just ask, because we don't want to limit what anyone is doing or how their program is going to be implemented. And so if it's adequate and appropriate, feel free to ask. Program initiation and staffing, step 7. This is just something important that we wanted to be sure that we talked with you about. And that is from the time of your approval as a Florida Post-Secondary Comprehensive Transition Program, you can take up to 1 year to enroll students for program development, for staffing, putting personnel in place, getting a location of where staff are going to be housed. If there's going to be certain symposiums, where are you going to have your symposiums at? Where are classes? So you don't, as soon as you're approved, you do not have to have students enrolled immediately. But you need to be thinking about what are your staffing needs as you're going through your program application as well as your grant proposal.
Yeah, that's critically important. And we have been working with some of our institutions to really think about that staffing component, because as you're looking at the next step, you're thinking about how many students. You have the grant is going to cover that personnel. It's going to cover those things that would help with the implementation. So you really want to think through when you start in your strategic plan, what do we need to get everybody on board? So it's not just a coordinator or a director. It is what other support personnel, and how will we work that through with our colleagues to make sure our students are going to be successful. So that part we find critically important, as Drew mentioned. 1 year you can take, is sort of like a planning year. Once you become an approved program, take a year. And we've had the last few programs that we approved, that's what they did. They took a year, they planned, they advertised, and when the next year came, they had everything ready. They had informed their institution and they got started. They recruited and got their students in. So that's really key as you start thinking about that. Who will you enroll? Your target area. And when you start thinking about that, that's why the student services, however students are enrolled in your in your institution. You want all of those on board so they can make sure that as these students come in, if there's a unique pathway in which they would do that, then this is the pathway. But again, with an approved program, you have scholarship funds for the students. They do not mix with the grant. Other than if you look at maybe on the grant side, you might have mentoring. On the student side, you might have mentoring. And that's something that we can talk through with you without muddying the water about how you look at that. But you look at their, I'm trying to think of the word with attendance, the cost of attendance. So as you're working with the students, you could go ahead to the next slide, Drew.
FTE.
And your FTE. So if you're looking at that, remember they have to be at least half-time. But what does it cost for a student to participate in any of your programs? As you're looking at the $7,000 that they would get for every year that they're in their program until you say they've exited, depending on the length of your program, they get $7,000. We break that out over the course of the length of your program each year. If you have a program that is 3 terms, 3 semesters, then we break the $7,000 out. Our intention is that you get the scholarship funds for each of the students you let us know about. All of that is done in the community, FCSUA community. We send you a check, your financial aid office oversees that. Our intention is just like when we went to college, we had scholarship funds. Maybe your students' funds, fees, tuition and fees, and whatever goes along with the program are all taken care of. Above $7,000 is above and beyond what they need. Just like we got the change from that, your students also get the change. Our desire is to get that change each term so that can help with them being a student each term. And I know, again, each program handles that very differently. But let's look at some of the charges that your institution might charge on a student's account for tuition and fees for the $7,000. Of course, tuition and fees, but books, they may have test taking fees. As you see for some of our technical colleges and other professional groups, they may cover travel that, you know, if they're in your program and you do this every year, they're going. And so your institution may charge against the student's account for travel or travel for local, just getting to your institution. It doesn't have to be for that. There are lots of other ways. Internships, as we look at specific courses that may be unique to your student program or your program at the institution, the students can be charged against their account. Technology equipment, you may decide every student in this program will have this particular device, or if they're in a particular concentration or program that you've carved out where they need unique equipment in order to get those work-related skills, then that can be charged against the scholarship. And for each institution, it takes time to talk through that, but we work with you to look at the possibilities. Again, the purpose of the scholarships are to offset the cost for the student and the cost for the family. And so we try to make sure we look at that. In addition to becoming an approved program, issuing your scholarships, receiving your grant award for implementation of your programs, each approved program attends 2 institutes. Excuse me. One is our great big one, Florida Postsecondary Education Program Planning Institute, where it's a large team of your colleagues who have hands in or who can help you further your program using the strategic plan. We use the strategic plan in July. We just finished having a fantastic one in July, and we're looking forward to the next one next July. For our team leaders only, the mid-year progress update, this will not be new programs if you haven't already started your application. If Drew and I have not already started working with you by January, only the team leaders of approved programs and those in the process will be invited to come to the Mid-Year Progress Update Institute, because the progress update is all about the strategic plan. So we will not have new teams coming who have not entered the strategic plan. But new teams will come in July. They're very welcome to come. I'm gonna work with an expert facilitator. Go ahead, Joe. As we look at our institutes, as you mentioned earlier, we have a capacity building model. And in that plan, every year we come together and we think about what you're doing through the process again, which is no different from what you're already doing with your programs, where you plan, you look at how your plan is going, you act on how that, you evaluate that, and you make decisions about what you need to do differently, what you need to do that's working well. And we work through with you each year twice to say, how can we help? How can we provide technical assistance or get resources to you and your institution to make things work? As you plan, you act, you evaluate, you keep the good stuff, you toss the other stuff, or you revise it in a way that your team is in a cyclical mode in continuous improvement to make sure that your program is moving in the direction in which you had planned it. As I mentioned, the Mid-Year Progress Update Institute is coming in January, and it's 24th through the 27th, and it's here in Central Florida. And we are right now in a contract mode with one of our local hotels, and so that is coming up soon. And again, you must be in progress or already an established program, and it will only be the team leaders and or maybe one other person if they so deem necessary. However, the one in July 10th through 13th is also here in Central Florida. And we have secured that hotel, the Hyatt Cypress. Drew, you probably know the name better than I do.
Hyatt Regency Grand Cypress.
There we go. I knew all the words in there, but not the order. That is for when you bring a larger team to help you think through how are we doing and to learn. Our institutes are just like what it says, it's kind of a hybrid of going to a conference and an institute. You go into breakout sessions as a team, you come back, you talk about what you learned in those sessions, and you plan to see how you can use that information in a way to move your program forward. So we do this twice a year, in addition to just ongoing support. Our programs, as they become approved, you must attend our institutes. So it's not an option to say, no, we won't come this year. That's part of your obligation, is to attend the institutes twice a year. And then also make sure that you look at a wholesome team of individuals to help you with your program improvement. I know we try to give you the dates so that you don't struggle with making sure that when we talk about team, we're real serious about that. It's just not one person. And so keep those dates in mind as you look at your handout. And if you're in the process of becoming a team or already a team, you know one is coming up in January, and then you have a larger team in July. You see this again. After 1 year, we expect you to become a comprehensive transition and post-secondary program. That application you must submit. The nice thing about it is, just like the Florida Post-Secondary Comprehensive Transition Program Act parallels the Higher Education Opportunity Act, our application parallels the Comprehensive Transition and Post-Secondary Program application. So much of the information that you've already put in our application to becoming a Florida approved program is part of that federal application. And as you may know already, that at your institution to submit anything for additional federal aid, that is handled through your financial aid officers. So that's why that person is extremely important to be part of your team, to make sure they understand how to submit that application. True.
I know this is a lot of information that we're sharing with you, but we really want to share with you the whole process, but know that we're there to support your team through the entire process. And once you have an approved Florida Post-Secondary Comprehensive Transition Program, and you've received a grant and your students are receiving scholarships, there is a reporting component. And so there is an annual program report due each year on your program. And then there's an annual student information report. This is all based on the legislation And if you enjoy that, and the legislation is written very well and it's very clear, look up the Florida Post-Secondary Comprehensive Transition Program Act, and you'll see all of the reporting requirements that are there. But student follow-up reports, we're required to follow up with students for 5 years. And so programs reach out and do their best to contact students after they have completed their Florida Post-Secondary Comprehensive Transition Program to find out if they're employed in a field that they studied while they were at the institution, and to find out if they have benefits and how many hours they're working. All of these give us information to see if we're making a difference in the lives of students. There's also a quarterly summary of FPCTP grant activities. As you receive your grant dollars, we need a summary of activities, as well as an annual grant performance report, and then a final grant performance report at the end of your grant. We take all of this information, and we're very involved in this right now, because by October 1, we have to submit a report to the governor, to the Commissioner of Education, and several chancellors, as well as the Senate and the House of Representatives, on our work. And so this is our annual report, the cover of it from last year. And we're putting that information together. And that is a great overview of all of the programs. So I'm going to also, we're at step 12 now, and this is the final step, which is supports. And so the FCSUA annual report is a great support, because it gives you lots of information and specifics on students as well as programs. But the Florida Center for Students with Unique Abilities was created here at the University of Central Florida to provide support to institutions of higher education to develop and implement programs for students with intellectual disabilities. That's why we're here. So we're here to help you. We have a great website that has lots of resources on it, and we have many webinars on different areas and different topics, and those are all in our YouTube channel. And so you can simply go to YouTube and search FCSUA, and you'll find lots of webinars that are recorded, just as this webinar is being recorded. And then also Florida Post-Secondary Comprehensive Transition Programs. It's wonderful to see how our programs support new programs. And so if you would like contact information for other programs, we're happy to provide that to you, because programs are happy to talk to you about their program, what their focus is, about the development whenever they develop their program. If you want to speak to someone who's in your same role and get their perspective on it and not just hear from us, so reach out to other Florida Post-Secondary Comprehensive Transition Programs, and you can find them under student and family, under the student and family area of our website. And then there's a tab that says find a post-secondary program, and the director of each program, as well as their email and their phone number, is there, along with a video that gives you a brief synopsis of that program. Here are all the things that we provide: assistance with your application, your grant proposal, your request for scholarships. We'll help you design your evaluation plans and to collect and analyze evaluation data. We're happy to help you with your federal comprehensive transition and post-secondary program proposal. And also, if there are any issues or changes in policy that need to be made, we can provide feedback to the state legislators regarding funding and policy needs. So as we come to a close of our webinar, I want to share with you some of our major accomplishments. We had 216 students enrolled in the 21-22 school year. 190 students have completed their FPCTP. 59% of students reported being employed in June 2021. There are 300 plus post-secondary pathways to employment credentials that are available. For 6 years, Florida Post-Secondary Comprehensive Transition Programs have been sustained, and currently there are 19 programs on 24 campuses in the state of Florida. Realizing the dream. Don't have time, but this is a video that is on the YouTube channel of students graduating from Florida Post-Secondary Comprehensive Transition Programs. We want to know if you have any questions. You're more than welcome to unmute yourself and to ask your question or to ask it in the chat window. We've been answering lots of questions, so if you haven't looked at the chat window, be sure and look at that also. But if you have a question, feel free to simply ask.
Our evaluation link for this webinar is in the chat, along with the link to seeing those other programs, having access to the other programs that Drew mentioned, where you can see who the directors are, their telephone numbers for the 19 programs across the state, whom have open arms waiting for you to ask them questions because they got assistance in moving forward themselves. So both have been added to the chat, and we appreciate your feedback. It helps us know how we can improve our webinars and provide the information to help move the programs forward. Any questions?
I'd like
Yes,
to
I have a question. Will you be putting this on, sending it by email with all the links? Because I'm on my cell phone, and so everything in the chat when I get off of this call is going to close.
Yeah.
Yes, this recording will come to us later this evening from Zoom, and probably by tomorrow afternoon, we will have an email sent out to every person that registered for this webinar, reminding them to complete the evaluation if they didn't have a chance to do so today, and also a link to the Zoom recording, which will be in YouTube. And that answers another question that we had in our chat window also. So that's a great question. Thank you for asking.
Thank you very much.
We'll also be sending you a copy of all the slides.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions?
I want to take just a moment to remind you all of our October 4th webinar titled Opening Doors for Persons with Intellectual Disabilities to Attain Meaningful Credentials. And this is going to be a webinar where one of our programs, which is the You Matter program at the University of South Florida, St. Petersburg campus, will be the presenters for that conference. And we have an informational webinar the first Tuesday of every month at 3 until usually 4, sometimes a little after 4, with great information on Florida Post-Secondary Comprehensive Transition Programs. But we're going to stay on the line, and you're welcome to ask questions in the chat or to unmute yourselves. But we'd like to thank everyone that took the time today to join in. We know this was a lot of information. We welcome your email, and I shared the email with you here. It's in the slides that you downloaded, and there's the link there to our YouTube channel, as well as our website, or follow us on social media through Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, and see all of the great things that are happening at Florida Post-Secondary Comprehensive Transition Programs.
Thanks, everybody.